It wasn't the sound of the safe locking that I remembered. It was the smell of chlorine on his fingers the night he told me we couldn't afford a decent vacation this year. That small, sharp scent, chemical clean, hiding a deeper rot, is the scent of utter betrayal. We had been married for 20 years, 2 decades built on the foundation of shared spreadsheets, joint accounts, and a meticulously managed budget. Mark, my husband, was the stable one, the financial wizard, the man who handled our portfolio while I managed the home, the kids, and my part-time consulting gig. I trusted him implicitly, blindly, perhaps foolishly. The first tremor hit 3 months ago. I was filing away the old mortgage documents, something routine, when a stray bank statement slipped out from between the papers. It was for an account I didn't recognize, under his name only, at a regional bank 3 states away, a bank we had no earthly connection to. The address listed was a P.O. box in Miami. My breath caught, not just because of the secrecy, but because of the number printed in bold, italicized font, the closing balance. It wasn't thousands. It was approaching 7 figures. I stood there in our sunlit office, the room filled with the comfortable familiarity of our life, holding the proof that everything, the mortgage, the vacations we supposedly couldn't afford, the sacrifices I made, was a carefully constructed lie designed to camouflage a monumental, ongoing theft. He hadn't just opened an account. He had engineered a parallel financial universe, one built solely for his escape. The initial shock rapidly solidified into a cold, hard determination. I didn't confront him that night. Confrontation without evidence is merely an accusation, and Mark was an expert gaslighter. I needed facts, dates, and a comprehensive map of his deceit. I started with the obvious, our shared online banking. Everything looked fine. Our standard investments were there, the mortgage payments going out, our savings slowly accumulating. But Mark's genius was in making the surface look pristine while gutting the foundation. I remembered he often handled the end-of-year bonuses from his tech company, saying he optimized the tax structure before transferring the net amount. I started tracing those transfers. Instead of going straight into our joint investment portfolio, a significant chunk, around 30%, would detour. First, it went to a shell corporation he'd secretly registered 2 years prior, listed under vague consulting services. From there, it would vanish into the routing number I had seen on that slip. I spent 3 weeks working only at 2 a.m. when his heavy, complacent breathing confirmed he was asleep beside me. I became a ghost in my own house, meticulously compiling the audit of our marriage. What I found wasn't just hidden money. It was 5 years of strategic planning to liquidate our future, dollar by stolen dollar. He hadn't just been saving. He had been constructing his parachute while assuring me our plane was flying steady. The sheer scale of the betrayal became utterly sickening when I cracked the actual ledger for the secret account. I used an old, rarely used laptop of his, guessing the password based on his deceased childhood dog's name, something he'd often mocked me for remembering. It worked. The screen flashed bright with the truth. $1.8 million. It was the inheritance I received from my father, the profits from selling our first starter home, and every major bonus Mark had ever claimed to reinvest for our retirement. He had categorized it meticulously: future property purchase, investment capital, emergency fund. These were the exact terms he used with me when justifying why we needed to tighten our belts or postpone certain expenditures. The money was being actively managed, invested in high-yield corporate bonds, accruing interest that he was carefully rolling back into the account. It wasn't stagnant. It was growing, ready for its deployment in the next chapter of Mark's life, a chapter that did not include me, our children, or the legacy we thought we were building. I printed every page, every transaction, storing the stack of documents in a locked file box I purchased specifically for this purpose. I remember feeling physically cold, the kind of chill that comes from staring into the void of a person you thought you knew. This wasn't a mistake or a lapse in judgment. This was premeditated financial murder. The cruelest part was recognizing what that $1.8 million represented on my side of the ledger. I had foregone my own career trajectory 15 years ago to ensure Mark could travel and focus entirely on launching his startup. I was the silent partner, the supportive wife, the one who handled every domestic crisis so he could focus on maximizing our potential. When my father died, the $400,000 inheritance was meant to secure my retirement, a safety net. Mark had convinced me, with soft assurances and complicated charts, that rolling it into a diversified investment strategy was the only responsible thing to do. He even had me sign documentation that, in hindsight, likely gave him sole managerial control over those specific assets. I had trusted his competence, his apparent devotion to our shared future. Every time he told me, "We can't afford that," or "We should wait until the market improves," he was standing guard over his private fortress, making sure no funds leaked back to the actual needs of our family. That account wasn't just money. It was 20 years of my deferred dreams, my emotional labor, and my father's legacy, all neatly bundled up and marked for Mark's exclusive use. It made the daily rituals unbearable. The shared coffee, the casual kiss goodbye. I was living with a highly sophisticated thief. I knew I couldn't move until I had secured my position, which meant consulting a lawyer specializing in complex asset division and marital fraud, all while appearing perfectly normal to Mark. The emotional burden of that charade was crushing. Every time he asked about my day, every time he offered a compliment, the lie tasted like ash. I found Amelia, a formidable attorney known for her quiet efficiency and vicious litigation skills. Meeting her was like injecting armor into my soul. She confirmed my worst fears. Mark's structure was designed to look accidental, but the offshore P.O. box confirmed intent to defraud, which would be crucial in court. She advised me to start slowly transferring half of our remaining known liquid assets into a separate account in my name only, citing managing risk if he were to ask. I was playing his game now, but with integrity and legal oversight. The pain of maintaining the facade, of sleeping next to the man who was actively trying to bankrupt my life, felt endless. We would watch TV discussing mundane logistics while I was planning how to dismantle him legally. This isn't just about money. It's about the deliberate dismantling of 2 decades of shared reality. When a betrayal is this planned, this long game, does the financial theft sting more, or the utter loss of the person you thought you knew? What is the breaking point for trust? Tell me in the comments below. The other woman was, unfortunately, inevitable. Amelia warned me that men who plan elaborate financial escapes are rarely doing it for solitude. They are preparing for a luxurious exit with a new partner. The confirmation came accidentally through an old travel rewards account Mark rarely used. He had booked 2 first-class tickets to the Seychelles, 5 months out, under his name and the initials Elsie. I did not need to know her full name or her backstory. I only needed to know that my financial ruin was tied to her future luxury. Mark's behavior grew increasingly detached. He was constantly on his phone, always claiming to be handling critical market volatility. He'd started dressing better, losing weight, and showing a peculiar, nervous energy I hadn't seen in years. He was shedding the skin of the reliable husband and trying on the costume of the adventurous bachelor. I monitored him discreetly, taking photos of the documents, confirming the Seychelles booking dates, lined up exactly with the projected date of his major business acquisition. He wasn't planning a vacation. He was planning his vanishing act, intending to leave me with the debt, the house, and the ruins of our credit rating. This quiet surveillance was exhausting, transforming me from a wife into a private investigator, but it was necessary for the survival of my own dignity. The confrontation had to be precise, timed perfectly after Amelia had filed the initial emergency motion for freezing assets. I waited until Saturday morning, right after he finished his usual routine of reading the financial news and drinking his black coffee, a portrait of domestic contentment. I placed the massive, neatly organized binder of evidence on the kitchen island between us. I didn't yell or cry. My voice was steady, dangerously calm. This is the transaction history for your account at Northern Fidelity, P.O. Box 779, Miami. The balance is currently $1,802,455. I also have the confirmation for the Seychelles tickets in May. Mark's face went white, the blood draining instantly, replaced by a deep purple flush of rage. He didn't deny it. He slammed his fist down, rattling the coffee mugs. You had no right to go through my private business. This is my money. I earned it. I managed it. His immediate defense wasn't remorse or apology, but possessiveness. He tried to claim he was protecting us from my reckless spending, that the money was an investment he intended to reveal later. The nerve, the audacity of standing in the house I paid for, in the kitchen I designed, accusing me of recklessness while he systematically stole our future, solidified my resolve. I simply pointed to the routing number for the transfer of my inheritance money. That money belonged to my father. You stole it. The confrontation ended with Mark storming out, threatening to sue me for invasion of privacy and promising to leave me with nothing but the house debt. But he was too late. While he was raging, Amelia's motion had already been filed and executed. By Monday morning, the secret account was frozen, legally inaccessible to him. He came home furious, demanding to know what I had done. I simply handed him a copy of the restraining order and the divorce summons. I hired an attorney who specializes in financial fraud, Mark. You tried to commit theft in concert with divorce, and now you have to answer for both. The legal fight was brutal, lengthy, and humiliating. Mark argued vehemently that I was mentally unstable and that the funds were business reserves. But my documented proof, the shell company transfers, the P.O. box, the timeline correlating with his distancing, was irrefutable. My lawyer methodically dissected every single transaction. The court saw his actions not as poor financial planning, but as a deliberate attempt to conceal and dissipate marital assets, a highly punishable offense in our state. The process forced me to relive every lie, every misplaced trust, but the small victory in court, seeing the judge side with me, demanding the full return of my inheritance funds and an equitable division of the remaining marital estate, was the first breath of clean air I had taken in years. The divorce took 18 agonizing months to finalize, leaving a crater in our family life, but a new foundation for mine. Mark was forced to pay back the majority of the stolen funds, plus significant alimony, due to the court finding of financial malfeasance. He lost access to the high-yield investments he had planned to enjoy with Elsie, and his reputation took a serious hit at his firm, leading to his eventual quiet departure. He vanished shortly after the final judgment, choosing to pursue his new, less luxurious life elsewhere. I had won the battle, but the resilience I gained was the real prize. The forced financial independence meant I had to step up, managing the investments, going back to school for a full-time certification in my field, and finally embracing the career I had deferred for 2 decades. The money was back, but the greatest asset I recovered was my self-trust. I learned that silence and complicity in the face of suspicion are the true enemies. My new life wasn't defined by the tragedy of the betrayal, but by the strength it took to meticulously expose the rot, demand justice, and rebuild an entirely new, structurally sound future on my own terms. The quiet strength required to confront a ghost living in your bed is immense, but the resulting freedom is immeasurable. The house feels emptier now, but cleaner. The silence is no longer weighted with unspoken lies, but filled with the promise of self-determination. When I look back at the 20 years, I don't see a total failure. I see a lesson in predatory trust. Mark didn't just steal money. He stole the emotional bandwidth and time I could have spent building my own fortress. But now the fortress is mine. I manage the accounts, I pay the bills, and every transaction is transparent and known. I closed the door on the we that was a sham and embraced the I that is strong and sovereign. The pain fades into history, replaced by the quiet confidence of survival. If you are listening to this and feel that subtle chill of suspicion, that chlorine scent on the fingers of your partner, please trust your gut. Investigate, protect yourself, and never assume that shared history equals shared honesty. The real femme fatale isn't the one who takes revenge, but the one who walks away with her life and her future intact. Thanks everyone for watching. If you liked this, please subscribe to the channel Femme Fatale Files, leave a like, and write in the comments which country you are from. Stay tuned, there will be a new story tomorrow.